in many circumstances, sticking to the old, tried and true traditional ways of doing things is more adaptive than, experimenting with new forms of family. So April 4, 2023, Dennis says, I know from years of experience with homeschooled kids that overwhelmingly they turn out happier, finer, kinder, and more intelligent. Right? Homeschooling apparently raises people's IQ. Wow. Who needs studies when Dennis Prager just knows these things, guys? He's just able to apply his galaxy brain, and you don't need those doggone pesky academic studies, right? You can just get it from Dennis. In 2010, he says, I wanted the answers when I was a kid. I wasn't given them. What is the Jewish role in the world? In 14 years in yeshiva, I never learned the Jewish role in the world. So Dennis was thinking about the big issues. He was just, way too smart, way too intelligent for his peers. Like his teachers, his rabbis, they just couldn't give him the answers that this galaxy brain needed. April 5 this year, Dennis says, the great lack in young Americans' lives is religion. It is the direct cause, not only cause of all the depression and lost sense of identity. So supposedly American youth have astronomical rates right now of depression and loss of identity. Okay, so if that's true, I suspect that Japanese and European youth don't suffer from the same amount of depression and loss of identity that American youth are said to suffer from, despite the Japanese and the Europeans being much, much, much more secular than American youth. So I don't believe that the lack of religion is the direct cause of the depression and loss of identity in American youth. I don't think it's the number one cause. March 27 this year, right? Dennis Prager, who is not mystical, all right, who can read Hebrew. I've never heard any other Jew who is not mystical and can read Hebrew say the following. I've come to entertain the possibility of a devil. It has been so diabolic what I've experienced the past 3 years. It is hard to explain on rational grounds the madness that has taken over. Right? So to hear it, an intellectual, smart, non-mystical Jew who can read Hebrew entertain the idea of a devil, that devil is causing most of our problems today, is about as un-Jewish as belief in the divinity of Jesus of Nazareth. I mean, just, you don't know how bizarre sounding that is from someone who can read the Torah. April 14 this year, Dennis says, climate change is the single best way for Joe Biden and the left to overthrow Western civilization and destroy the economies of the Western world. Right, he's got the galaxy brains. He sees their nefarious plans. April 14 this year, when the government tells business what to do, that is one of the true signposts of incipient fascism. All right, that thousands of non-fascist governments have told businesses what to do. It's hardly a sign of fascism. People with power frequently tell people with less power what to do. Right? It's the way the world works. All right, it's less a sign of fascism than a sign of being human. The strong will always take what they want, and the weak will endure what they must. Luke is too innocent to know that bottle blondes are out there in the wild. A waitress I know even dyes her eyebrows, or to get the golden look and a glance from Luke Ford types. Prediction, cute blonde Julie Hartman leaves Dennis, and we stop getting Dennis clips played on the 40 show there. Okay, Dennis says December 19. The left has been working to destroy this country for centuries. They're not working to destroy this country. They are following their experience of reality and following their own genetically imprinted and early childhood experiences to try to make America better from their perspective, all right? Different people experience reality differently. Different people have different gifts. Different people have different forms of childhood imprinting. And so that's why people come to the perspectives that they do. December 6th, Dennis says, big lies inevitably lead to violence and can even destroy civilizations. Well, every civilization is absolutely filled with big lies. I'm skeptical of that claim. July 14, 2017, the news media in the West pose a far greater danger to Western civilization than Russia does. Really? I mean, Russia's got nuclear weapons, right? Russia can launch nuclear weapons at us. Compared to the New York Times, I would say that Russia poses more of a danger. January 30th, Dennis says, I think meat is the healthiest food there is. I got that from Jordan Peterson. He's getting his health food advice from Jordan Peterson. So in general, I'm struck by the awe that the ignorant frequently display towards Dennis Prager and the lack of awe shown to him by those who actually know something. And I agree with what Paul Gottfried said January 28, 2020. I think Dennis Prager is an intellectual vulgarian of a kind I've rarely encountered in this world. He said such ridiculous things about history, fascism, democracy, and so forth. It is hard for me to bestow any respect on his intellectual accomplishments. And Paul Gottfried wrote December 17, 2017, right-wing celebrities play fast and loose with history. Forget Trump. Jonah Goldberg, Dennis Prager, Dinesh D'Souza muddle facts to sell books all the time. Godfrey notes one of the most ludicrous examples of the conservative movement's recent attempt at being sophisticated was an exchange of equally uninformed views by talk show host Dennis Prager and Dinesh D'Souza on the subject of the fascist worldview. The question was whether one could prove that fascism was a leftist ideology by examining the thought of Mussolini's court philosopher Giovanni Gentile. Gentile defined the fascist idea while serving as Minister of Education in fascist Italy. He was one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century. It'd be hard to summarize Gentile's thought in a few pithy sentences, and not surprisingly, Canadian historian of philosophy H.S. Harris devotes a book of many hundreds of pages trying to explain his complex philosophical speculation. Hey, that's no big deal for such priests of the GOP church as Prager and D'Souza. They zoom to the heart of Gentile's neo-Hegelian worldview in 30 seconds and state with absolute certainty that he was a leftist. You have to assume that Prager, D'Souza, and the rest of their crowd know this intuitively, inasmuch as they give no indication of having read a word of Gentile's thought, perhaps outside a few phrases they extracted from his doctrine of fascism. Their judgment also clashes with that of almost all scholars of Gentile's work from across the political spectrum, who view him, as I do in my study of fascism, as the most distinguished intellectual of the revolutionary right. So according to our two stars in what has been laughably named Prager University, Gentile proves that fascism bears a deep kinship to today's left. After all, Democrat progressives in full agreement with Gentile love and push for a centralized state, which manifests itself in stuff like recent state expansion into the private sector. But among the questions that are left begging of these, the modern left and Gentile agree on the purpose and functions of the state, where Gentile and Mussolini, who glorified Roman manliness, have rallied to the present left in their support of feminism and gay marriage. Did Gentile back in the 1920s favor the kind of stuff the administrative state is pushing right now? The answer to all these questions, which of course wouldn't be acceptable at Prager University, is an emphatic no. So control of the national economy by the Italian fascist state, down until its German puppet version was established in 1943, it was about the equivalent of that of the New Deal America. Right, 2014, Dennis says, one of the deepest disappointments in my life has been Jews' opposition to wars against evil. Why should Jews not support fighting on behalf of the victims of the greatest evils? Gosh darn, these Jews. I mean, where do you begin with that? Strangely, the Jewish tradition is silent on how active Jews need to be in lobbying their Gentile government to, go fight a war overseas against evil. Right? The ongoing rabbinic tradition doesn't say a whole lot about that.